What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you. Actually, I was going to just do the what's up, everyone? Welcome to podcast now, but that's not how I'm going to play it. Today, I have someone that's really special on the channel, and that's Alex from Podcast Now. And I'm going to go ahead and do an introduction here because I think it's very appropriate in this time. Because when I jumped into this space to make videos on Arkham and whatever it was, when we heard rumors about this game and Mortal Kombat was already on the horizon, it was his channel and, you know, a few other channels that I kind of looked at for a reference on what to do. And I think with, you know, the influence he's had on the Warner Brothers games community and even overall in entertainment and his style is very important. And today I have him on the channel to talk about the creative process and, yes, a little bit about Gotham Knights. I know some of you are probably going to be wondering. And that's what we're going to be doing today in this very short podcast-ish video. So, Alex, go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone.
Okay, well, firstly, thank you so much for having me. I've seen your work. I think you're awesome at it. Again, as I said before we hit record, we're very much the same way where we post, I think, way too many videos in a jokingly way. We post way too many videos, but we love it. And so, yeah, I've been a fan of your channel for a long time. So thank you again so much, man, for having me on. My normal, opening. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. So I've been around a while, but in terms of like being something that I think people know of, it hasn't actually been, all that long that I've been, I guess noticed. But I've been at this for a long time, cover way too many things, but, mainly gaming, cover some movies like Pirates and Scream. Those are kind of like my go-to ones. Have a second channel and again, make way too many videos about all sorts of, every game out there. But of course, I kind of pick my go-tos. Like Gotham Knights is one that I cover more than most. Hogwarts Legacy is one, and more than most of my other videos, not other creators. Gotham Knights, Hogwarts Legacy, like that, Scream or Pirates of the Caribbean, so that kind of stuff. But again, man, thank you so much for having me.
Hey, it's my pleasure, man. And so one of the reasons that I decided that we would actually do this topic in conjunction with a little bit of a slice and a piece of the video games that we covered is specifically because there are a lot of aspiring creators in our community. And one thing I've learned is in a community of creators, what every creator actually needs is not necessarily what they acknowledge that they need. And this is because, there is some competition. I mean, everyone is in here, in a sense, competing and trying to get views and all of that. I mean, even if we may not be necessarily going head to head like in a football match, we want our channels to grow. But the reality is our channels actually would grow if everybody else that's in our space grows, because that's how the algorithm works. The algorithm recommends and does cross recommendation. So if one person that's doing a good job is not growing, then it's always nice to see that person grow, because overall, anyhow we can help that person grow by, maybe citing a video from them or maybe featuring them on our channel. These are the elements that actually help the overall community be healthy. And then at some point, that list of creator, library is going to be, hedged into the algorithm to a very strong extent. When somebody new comes in, they can actually say, okay, who are the creators in this space? Example, Destiny 2. If you look at Destiny 2, there's a library of creators and they're all, kind of the established creators in that community. So I decided that this is going to be a thing where I would just ask you about the creative process. And so everybody can kind of like listen in on it. So question number one, how did you get started on YouTube?
Boy, so... Well, I watched back in the day. So, like, IGN was my go-to. That was my, when I was, like, younger, I had, like, the laptop in my room, and I would go, if I went for gaming news, it would really only be IGN. I used to do Kotaku as well, and then I quickly fell off that one. But IGN was the one, and they had Podcast Beyond with Greg Miller and Colin Moriarty, and those two are awesome. And I still look up to Colin Moriarty in a lot of ways. And then when they broke off and went to Kind of Funny on YouTube, and they did a lot of podcasts. I mean, that was kind of their entire thing. And so I was like, I want to do that. So actually, Podcast Now was created simply to do just podcasts, like literal sit down with people, which is what I did when I started. And it would get, 10 to 20 views. That's why it took me a while to that's why I look at people like you, or literally really anybody that starts up now that can get like, say, 1,000 subscribers in a year. And people sometimes look down on that, or they look down on themselves and say like, I'm not growing fast enough. And I'll always say, it took me like 2 full years, I think maybe 23 months to get to 1,000 subscribers, because I just had no idea what I was doing. And I was doing podcasts where we would talk about candy or Halloween or just sort of some random stuff that made no sense. But it was fun. It was fun, and it got me talking. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't, number one, I'm kind of shy. Like, I have somewhat anxiety of talking to people. I stay inside all the time, so I don't really talk to people. And so it just got me able to kind of roll, which I think you and I are kind of naturals, quote unquote, but I mean, you have to work on it, right? To just be able to talk about, I don't know about you, I don't write scripts
Me
for
neither.
almost any of my, we just kind of go. And that takes time. Like, no, people aren't, you look at people that just start and they are not good at it, because it's like, well, obviously you're not good at it because you haven't done it yet, which is totally fine. So yeah, that's how I started doing podcasts. I had games, like I did Let's Plays of games, but again, very generic. I would play the game, wouldn't show my face, just did like voiceover, and it just went nowhere. And then it was over time that I started doing, thinking of like topics for games, like, or even like my favorite games, or talking about if this game is going to come back in a certain year. So things like that started getting views, and I was like, oh, okay, this is maybe what I'm better at, number one. And number two, like, this actually gets views, whereas, talking about Christmas gets like 7 views. Talking about Infamous 3 gets a couple hundred. It's like, okay, well, maybe I can do more of that stuff. And that's what I did.
Awesome. So I'm glad you actually, I'm glad I asked that question first, because you answered multiple questions that I had, and that's fine. And so what I'll do is I'll just maybe start breaking them apart. So number one, you started because you saw IGN and people that you could resonate with making YouTube videos, and you thought, I probably need to try this out. So for those who are watching the video who want to be creators, or who've ever thought about the creative process, this is how it starts. You see someone and you say, man, I need to try this. That's usually how it goes. Or some people say, people in your close community, they say, go ahead and do this. That's how I started, the exact same way. I saw there was a guy that made videos for The Division, Marco Style, out of the Netherlands. And I decided, I probably, want to do this. And then people in my, PlayStation community, or we played The Division together, said, you always know stuff about this game because you pay attention to the news. And they didn't bother watching, like, developer Q&As and all that. They just got online and would just quiz me all day, because they're like, dude, I'm not watching that. You're the guy. And so I started doing videos that way. And then you answered as to why you started. You started because you were interested in, in doing that. And so those are 2 questions that you answered. And then the other one that you answered that was actually very funny was supposed to be like the second to the last question. And I asked that question in the sense, what content you made versus the content you made now, or what content you wanted to make compared to the content you make now. You just said it. You wanted to do podcasts, but now you found out that something that you're actually good at that resonates with the community is actually making video games, videos covering video games and all these other topics.
And that takes, honestly, well, I think it takes a different, I was going to say that takes a long time, but I think it just depends on the person, and depends on kind of your mindset going in, right? Also, like, YouTube is not as new now as it was, and YouTube's different now than what it was when, we started, or even before. Like, y'all look at some people that are in the hundreds of thousands of subscribers, or even like low millions, and they kind of also, I mean, yes, you have like the people that were here forever, but you do have a lot of people that started back in like 2013, 14. Like, I started in 15. So there was like that stigma when I started that like it's impossible to get through in YouTube. You know what I mean? And I don't think that was exactly true, because even somebody like me that had, not saying I'm big, because I'm definitely not, but, going in with nothing, if you work at IGN and then you make a YouTube channel, you have all of that movement, right? The people that followed you at IGN, so it's cheating, I struggle to say that, but you definitely have that advantage for sure. And a lot of people are switching from Twitch to YouTube, or YouTube to Twitch. When you start as like, a 17, 18-year-old, whatever, and you have literally no idea what you're doing, and you have like 10 friends, that's your subscriber base. Like, I mean, having, right, like having like 20 subscribers in the first month, like that's what most normal people have. And that's where people make the mistake of stopping. I've said that 1,000 times. Whenever people come up to me, I mean, like on Twitter, whenever people decide to talk to me, I'll always say, like, the number one thing to do is just don't stop making the videos, right? Because most people,
my gosh, you think like it's like my brain talking to me.
yeah, I mean that's all. Because people stop, and why? Honestly, I understand why. In fact, I think most people, not probably should. Like, it's just a natural feeling, right? You have 10 subscribers, your videos get 2 views, like forever, and it's like, well, I'm done. So I think what needs to kind of happen is a little bit of luck, to be honest with you. Like, because even with me, right? I did those things. I let's played Life is Strange. I let's played Tales from the Borderlands. Those were my first 2 games in that order that I ever played. So I did that. I would do the podcasts. And when you get like under 20, I mean, yes, you have like a 50 view one, right? But if you had like under 20 for the first, 5-6 months, eventually you're going to be like, all right, well, I mean, I'm not going to do this for 5 people. You know what I mean? Like, yes, they're all viewers, and that kind of, talk that people say, like, each one is still an individual, and that's true. And some of those people from the early days are still around. But at the same time, it's like, well, I get why you would quit. But then I think we did Witcher videos, a couple like guides, like how to find a sword, and because Witcher 3 came out right after we started the channel. So we did a Witcher 3 like guide video, and I got like 1.1 thousand. We're like, holy God, like it actually works, you know what I mean? And that kind of got us more into gaming. And then, 2 years later, 2017 was Pirates 5, which that was out of like passion. I wanted to talk about Pirates. It's that kind of cliche story where it's like, oh, I just turned on a mic and talked about something that I thought was interesting, and I didn't expect anybody else to, do it with me. But honestly, that's exactly what happened, right? Like, I talked about Pirates, didn't expect other people to actually care. I didn't know Pirates was big, like on YouTube. It actually is very big. So that was pretty awesome and that got the growth going, and that kind of jump-started the channel.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's a really good story. And, I'm so excited that, you're saying all this stuff and I can just resonate with it. And, one of the really big things, too, according to what it is that you just said, is just that story that you just picked up a microphone and it just happened. Same story, similar, pattern in my case. But the really crazy thing, though, in all of this is never stop making the videos that you're interested in. At the end of the day, like you said, if you keep making videos, you'll eventually, 1, get good at it, and 2, you eventually find videos that resonate. Like you said, again, you made that Witcher video and it got 1,000 views, and you were like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like in my case, I did not get a lot of videos from Gotham Knights when I first started. I was making, I think my videos that got the most views were Mortal Kombat videos, a video on Dream. I was trying to figure out what I would do on this channel pending when Gotham Knights came out. I knew I wanted to cover Gotham Knights when I started this channel.
Was there one that like blew, like quote unquote blew up, like bigger than the others? Do you remember it?
I remember Mortal Kombat videos. I did these comparison videos with old characters because I like fighting games. And the Kitana video blew up. I made a video comparing Kitana. That video blew up. A bunch of my Mortal Kombat videos blew up as well. And then I had a video from Dreams that also did blow up. And I did one video about like when we thought that Rocksteady was going to release that Superman game and it turned out not to be it. That was my first video that actually did very well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But the challenge that I faced was when I was covering the Mortal Kombat content, I was like, I'm going to cover this because I like MK. Was YouTube at that time started to demonetize MK11 videos. They went ham. And so I quickly backed out because I was like, well, my channel is not even big enough to get D-ranked. Right. And so I need my channel to be in a place where I can cover Gotham Knights, or then we thought it was going to be called Arkham Legacy. And so that's what I did. So also recognizing and understanding the temperature, reading the room is very important as a creator as well. So when you see creators do things like switch up or, make a move to a specific direction, it's because they have a goal in mind. So most people are surprised that I make a lot of Gotham Knights videos, but that was my goal, to cover Gotham Knights. It wasn't until then we then saw Suicide Squad, and then, the news of Hogwarts Legacy was actually kind of brewing anyways. But these other games just happen to all just fall in place. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to add you guys. But for now, you're going to be taking second and third place because you guys are not out yet. So Gotham Knights is the one that's coming, forward, which leads me now to the Gotham Knights side of the conversation before I ask you a kind of a final closing question later down the road. So right now, what are your thoughts on Gotham Knights in terms of sales, performance? Because this is not like you're seasoned now, you're a veteran, so you can take a thermometer to a game and say this is how I feel this game is going to do. So what are your thoughts?
So honestly, I stick to what, and I've thought this for a long time, and I hope, my ego, I hope / I think I'm going to be right. Like, this is going to be a game, in my opinion, that's going to be a good game or like slightly above average game, and that's. Is that fine? Well, that's up to the person, right? Because if you're expecting like a 10 out of 10, it's like a 7 out of 10. I can see how that's a disappointment, right? Depending on where you put your expectations. But I think this game is going to be like an above average game. It's not going to be bad. It's not going to be awful, right? Which would be like even worse than bad. And it's not going to be amazing, which would be better than average. So that's in terms of, and I'm talking about like reception from the fans. I think people are going to find some things they like about it. I think there's going to be some surprising, elements that people like that maybe they didn't think they were going to like, right? Like maybe the combat. Some people say it looks a little too slow. Maybe it'll work. Or maybe the story will be really good when people aren't really focused on it right now. So I think there'll be like one or two standout things. I think there'll be other things that are like totally average. That's like, okay, well, this is not this is a game that's not going to really change the industry in the way that Arkham was. And I think that's going to be, that's the biggest thing to me, because I do think people want that. And to expect every game to change the industry, that's totally unrealistic. And I get why people would say it's unrealistic, but I get it. It's Gotham Knights. It's coming from, Origins creator. It's coming from, that Batman Arkham kind of DNA. So I get why people would make that comparison and say, we want this game to change something, like to, be so good, like The Last of Us 1 or the first, yes, those are gigantic ones, but even the way Arkham did it, or I don't know, some games, how they, change kind of how the industry moves with storytelling, or like Telltale, what did with The Walking Dead and stuff. So I don't think any of that's going to happen. I guess short, making it short. But I do think the sales, I think the sales are going to be really good. I think that the game is going to sell itself based off DC and based off of the Gotham Knights name. So at least at launch, maybe it's like a Death Stranding thing where it sells insanely good the first month and then it falls off a cliff, because that happened with Death Stranding. I think it sold 5 million in the first 4 weeks, which was really good, and then literally it stopped selling. Like, it stopped after that. So, which is kind of an issue. You don't really want. Ideally, you would want like Elden Ring, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's. I think for Gotham Knights, I really don't think there will be that massive drop off, to be honest. Because also, I guess final thing I'll say, I think the co-op multiplayer, that's not even really for me. Like, I don't really play games multiplayer, or I mainly do single player. I think that's kind of an underrated feature, that even if the game is bad or it's average, playing it with a friend immediately makes literally any game of any quality better, I think. Because you're kind of making that fun, right, with your friend, not even necessarily the game itself. So I think the co-op inadvertently will maybe save the game, quote unquote. Like, I think that'll be a really big difference maker. The only thing I guess that could hurt it is that the consoles that are on, right, because it dropped the last gen, so it's only dealing with PS5, Xbox One, PC, or Xbox Series S and X. So that's kind of an issue, because I think there's a lot of PS4 and Xbox One people that would buy it. I don't know how many, like 2-3 million maybe, right? So you may be losing 2 to 3 million sales. So that could definitely hurt. And I tend to actually forget that aspect of it, but I think it's going to be fine. Again though, for some, for us, how channels are like made off of this stuff, and DC is so big, and we talk about all these DC games. I think it is going to be a letdown in a way from that, because I don't think it's going to be like the most special thing on planet Earth. But I think it'll be like a fine game. We'll see if it gets buried though, because there's a lot of games that come out in October or November that are not just fine, but could be like outrageously good.
Okay. So yeah,
that's where I stand.
That's where I stand as well. I made a video this morning and I looked at, just basically the top sellers and pre-orders, and Gotham Knights, in say probably somewhere around 30 games, Gotham Knights is sitting at 15. You know, so that already tells you that this is how people feel, and that's the deluxe edition. In fact, on top of that, I don't know if you've even seen this, and so when we get off this interview, basically go make a video about it if you want. I'll make a video about it. Is I just saw that Gotham Knights, the PlayStation 4 and Xbox, I say PlayStation 4, sorry, PS5 and Series X version got discounted on the Amazon.co.uk store. This is the base edition. This is not the deluxe. So it's now £49. It was about 59 pounds and 99 whatever their cents is, P's or something in Britain.
Yeah.
And so now it's at $47. Now it's not a big discount, but it shows that number, that the statistics that we saw in the PlayStation Store, where the base edition is not selling as well, or at least it's not selling as good as the deluxe edition. Right. So they're discounting that base edition because people now know that if you buy the base edition, you're going to be buying that other visionary pack or something. Yeah. So it might make sense for some people in the UK, at least, not on the US stores anyways, to maybe follow that. And that shows that the game is just going to be a normal game. It's just going to be a game that's, in a sense, just, you know, a little bit above. There's nothing going to be phenomenal about Gotham Knights that we haven't seen. And I think it goes to show that gaming has, in a sense, almost reached its peak, you know, in terms of the new fundamentals that are added to these games every day, that what is actually required for video games to be good is the old school fundamentals that made video games good, like what Elden Ring and Zelda and some of these other games like Callisto Protocol are trying to do, which is just bring back the old, you know, core gaming mindset. Because all of this extra fluff that has been Ubisoftified and, you know, all these big things, they've just really numbed a lot of players, because you expect that there's going to be a map here. You expect that and these things used to be fascinating. Oh my, big open world, you know, but those concepts right now are not resonating. And I can't really blame the devs at Gotham Knights. If you think about it, Patrick Redding got hired to the studio, or he started at the studio in 2014. Around that time, if they were making, say, some other game, and they decided maybe somewhere around 2 years after that they were going to do Gotham Knights, right? Or 3 years after that. 3 years after that was 2017. Open world games were still amazing. Everybody was freaking out when they saw an open world game. You know, so they followed the trend, I'm guessing, or their bosses said, make an open world Batman game. You know, these were the trends at that time. The Division had just done very well in sales. The Division had just, you know, broken the door open. And so these trends, in my opinion, was probably what these business leaders thought, oh, this is going to make money. But then you start making the game, right? And then the industry starts changing in real time in front of you. Yeah. But you're already 3 years into the game development. So you're not trying to change the whole development right now. So you just keep going. So when your game comes out, the industry has changed drastically, because the other guy that got their game out in front of you probably either did something way better or did something terrible, which is Cyberpunk, way terrible, Elden Ring, way better. So now you're sitting and your game is about to come out, and it's so, I can't even imagine why anybody bothers to make video games the way they do these days, honestly. So I'm of the same mind. You know, there are going to be games that are going to really be heavy hitters, and Gotham Knights cannot do anything about it than just release and appeal to who it's going to appeal to. And the developers at Warner Brothers Games Montreal need this experience. Yeah. They need this experience. I think that's what people are failing to see, that the team is capable of making a good, or a game that is exceptional, right? But for now, they're just going to have to, you know, deal with the market forces and understand. So next time, when they're trying to release a video game, they'll probably release the game like, say, or maybe face the reality of maybe Forspoken. Forspoken is coming out in January. No competition at all. Almost no competition with that game. You feel me? Hogwarts Legacy is coming out in February in order to reduce its competition so that it can gain. And that's strange. Q1 used to be the worst quarter. Not until March did you start seeing good video games. But now gaming companies are looking and saying, yo, we don't have this strength to pick and choose. If we don't have to compete with Modern Warfare, we're great. I don't know if you saw the PlayStation list. Modern Warfare is in front of God of War, man. It's in front of Ragnarok. And so... But okay,
those games sell.
Yeah.
And that's now you're right. I mean, that they need the experience. Because we haven't seen like the people that are here now. Very few of them were around with Origins, right? If any.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a whole new team put together. It's their first game together. Really, it's kind of a recreation of WB Montreal, and we know they're making that second game. But you're
Mm-hmm.
right. I mean, that's why. But I've always been like against the whole like going off of the trends. I think Fortnite, for what you think about the game, is fine, but in terms of what Fortnite did to the industry, is like the worst thing humanly possible. I think Fortnite is probably like the worst game that could have ever come out in the gaming industry. Not because of the game itself's quality, but because of what it did to the mindset of people. And you could argue, the whole open world push, the live service kind of stuff. So that, yeah, that's why when I think of like setting, I think you got to set the trend, which is obviously tough to do because you have
Mm-hmm.
to kind of like be ahead of everybody. But the other thing that you mentioned that I thought was really smart, you said like you just have to do it for your fans. That's ultimately it. If you're not going to set a trend and you're just part of a trend, then you at least have to make it streamlined to your group, right? Who are you
Mm-hmm.
trying to go after? We know who they're trying to go after, and that's it. Just make the game for them, and that's don't make it for really anybody else. To be honest, hopefully they come to you, and that's it. And so I've always been hoping for the best, even when I've made negative videos. And I really don't make that many negative videos on this game. I've always wanted the game to do well, and I hope it does. I hope it surprises. I want it to surprise people, and I hope it surprises people. And I
Yes.
think in some ways it will. I think in other ways it won't. I don't think people are going to walk out and say, "Oh, this is game of the year. This is like an amazing game. We were all wrong." I think people are going to say, "Oh, wow, the story is a lot better than I thought," or the gameplay this like strangely works, like like something like that. I don't think they'll say it over the full game, but I think like elements I think people will be surprised.
Yes. Yes. So we've gone around 20 minutes, and so I want to be very, very sensitive and respectful of your time. I really appreciate you doing this. So I have the final closing question that kind of covers what I felt would be the best aspect of this entire conversation, and that's your advice for new content or aspiring or anybody that's ever thought about it, that thought they could pursue it seriously. What would you encourage them
Yeah.
to do?
So, okay, so in modern day YouTube, and honestly, this is like modern day YouTube. I would say you have to pick something. Like, you have to pick a more specific thing now than you did when we started. Even though it was probably a good idea for us to have picked a very specific thing back when we started as well. Or even when like I was saying when I was doing podcasts, it would have been a lot better. I would have grown faster. I would have been even more ahead of the curve, or actually just ahead of the curve in general, because I'm not now. I would have been more ahead if I did it back then. So right now, you got to pick a topic or pick something that you're into. So if it's games, then at least it's games, right? You don't have to be too specific, but if it's games, it's games. If it's movies, if it's theories, if whatever, you pick what you want to do. If you really want to get like zeroed in on it, you can pick like a specific game. So if you're into games, but you're into RPG games, well, there's actually channels that only cover only RPGs, not single player, not or like linear, just RPGs. So you could do that, and then the rest of it is honestly more into that generic, YouTube talk that probably other people have said. You just keep making videos, and you be somewhat consistent. Meaning, if you want to make a video every week, pick a day, and that's the day you make a video every single week. So if you want to make it, and so if you're busy, because people have lives, if you're busy and you can only do one a week, pick a Saturday or whatever. Every single Saturday, you make a video and you have it go up. Never miss a Saturday. If you do it daily, well, that's obviously a lot tougher because you've just screwed yourself in a way. But no, honestly, like you just do it. You make it every single day. You make a new video every day. You don't have to necessarily be consistent with the time, but and then honestly, like the rest of it, it's cliche, but it's true. Like you just get better over time. Like I'm not a great editor at all. I'm getting better. I've definitely gotten better in the last year. I've gotten better at thumbnails in the last year, but I wouldn't even say I'm in the top half of thumbnail making or editing videos, but I'm there. I exist. So you'll get better at that. You'll definitely get better at speaking. Right? If you write scripts, that's another thing too, right? How your style is. If you like scripts and you want to read off a script, well, do that. You do it every single time, and you see how that works. Or if you find out you don't like it, then you pivot. But it's all about just being consistent. And again, like I get it when you have like 5 views on a video and you have it for a couple months, you know what I mean? But again, there's that luck involved where you have to kind of know where to pivot, or if you see something work, you pivot directly to that, right? Same, like literally like me. If I was doing the podcast, then I did like a guide video, or I would do a theory or whatever. I said, oh, these ones kind of work. I still did the other stuff, and I did the other stuff actually longer than I should have, but I kind of did both. And I was like, oh, well, let me add this thing that's doing well. And eventually that kind of snowballs. Then I did eventually news, and I found, oh, news works. People like news. People like theories. People like discussions about certain games. You know, and then you pick stuff that maybe isn't all that like I cover games that aren't very popular, so I kind of stand out because I'm probably the biggest one who covers some of these smaller games. Then you have like Gotham Knights. We both, you and I both saw that this is a community that's kind of like open for people to, like you said in the very beginning, when something is as popular as Gotham Knights, even if the game isn't even all that good, if it's popular, not only number one does that make it, you know, well, I guess just in general, everybody has a chance because so many people are making videos. Those videos are getting views. You can join in on this Gotham Knights community on YouTube, make videos as a 2-subscriber channel, and you probably would get picked up because you're kind of like riding the wave that all of us are on and we're all contributing to. Hogwarts Legacy is the same thing. And there's some communities that have that, right? Like for me, Scream, Hogwarts, Gotham Knights, God of War, PlayStation tends to do pretty good. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what you're looking for. And you'll know when things work and don't work based off of, you know, the views and stuff. Oh, and final thing. I know I went on way too long. Final thing, though, is just being yourself. And that's also a very cliche thing. But there was that era of YouTube where people were like fictional characters, right? Where, you know, you created like an alternate persona. That's not really popular at all. I think people want honesty. No matter where you stand, like in politics or in life or literally anything, just be honest and be actually who you are in real life. Don't put on a fake, you know, person, because people will read, because, you know, if you get big, you know, if something happens, and I'm not talking about big, like millions of subscribers, just even thousands, just a couple thousand, people will be able to tell when you're being genuine and not, and that will ruin or help like everything, right? If you're lying the whole time and then people find out when you're at like 6K subscribers, you will completely fall apart. Whereas if you've been telling the truth and you just been you, that's, you know, so that is a very cliche thing, but it's a thing over the last probably 3 to 5 years where people that, I think everybody's probably seen the example, right? People that haven't been very real, and then we find out who they are. There's that distrust. There's the loss in subscribers and again, their community. So be who you are. Doesn't matter who you are. You know, you could have bad opinions, or you know, you can be more risky, or you could, I don't know, you could just cover one console and people call you a console warrior. But at least just be that. Be who you. If that's what you want to be it. Don't be something that you're not.
Exactly. So I just wanted to take the time to just say thank you very much for. You know, taking out a portion of your day to share some of these, because it's actually very interesting, and I strongly believe that a lot of people are going to benefit from this. So for those of you who actually enjoyed the video, you already know Podcast Now, but if you do not know Alex from Podcast Now, just look up Podcast Now. His channel is going to come up #1. I will also leave a link in the description so that you can go check out his content. He has more variety and more range, and I really enjoy that. And you know, for me, people don't understand, but it's helpful for me because he covers stuff and I don't have to bother, right, until it's actually coming down to the wire. So that's why I appreciate a channel like his so much, because if there's a question you might have, say, you know, I have my audience members saying, you know, they want me to cover something like Hogwarts Legacy. I'm like, man, I would love to, but let's get Gotham Knights out of the way first. And then maybe as December, January is getting around, then I can put more emphasis. But he has a lot more range. And so he's probably going to be holding up this community in terms of news. I'm sure his back hurts by now. And, you know, he's going to make sure that we're all, you know, in place. So thanks, Alex. I really appreciate you for coming on the channel, and give a shout out. Say goodbye.
Course. Well, again, thank you so much, man. I mean, you're too kind. I'm not as busy, not as busy at least today as you make it out. But no, I really appreciate it, and you're a great guy. And again, we've known of each other, at least we've known of each other for quite a while. So I think you do great work. Again, I respect the grind, and I think a lot in the same way people tell me, like, how do you make so many videos? Well, you make so many videos, and they're Gotham Knights, which I think is harder to do, to make that many videos on one thing. So I appreciate your work. I think you've earned it. I love to see you as you are growing. It's
you.
great to see. And yeah, it's been a pleasure, and we'll have you. I don't know who's making it to the very end of this video, but I definitely want to have you come on, my channel at either a live stream or a video very soon, and we'll do something on my channel as well. So thank you again for having me.
I'll be happy to. Thanks again. All right, take it easy, guys. Peace out.